Hi, everybody. Welcome. We're going to let everybody get logged in. Appreciate you joining us. Starting to get some folks on the line with us today. Hope you came back this week all rested from hopefully a fairly long break last week. Okay, still looks like we have quite a few folks joining us. When we slow down, we will get things kicked off. Okay, I think we have hit a good place. Hopefully, more folks will go ahead and join us. Welcome to our peer data webinar series. This is the third of our series that we have hosted this fall in response to a desire from those of you who are involved in data management system and you're in creating and supporting your data culture, just kind of all of the wonky folks trying to make some connections out there and to stay engaged with our data oriented folks as much as possible. So we do hope to continue with this type of webinar next year. So keep your eyes and ears open for info about that. So today, first of all, I'm Terry Bearden. I'm the project director for organizational capacity building here at the Community Action Partnership. And I am pleased to be joined today by Dr. Keenan Woods, who is the director of performance management at United Planning Organization in the DC area. So Dr. Woods is going to talk about a web of data management systems. What if your spreadsheets talk to each other? And when we say talk to each other, we mean in a productive way, not the way they kind of snicker behind your back when you can't quite get that formula to work, we mean talk to each other in a productive way. All right, so we want to ground ourselves in the promise of community action before I turn things over to Dr. Woods. Community action changes people's lives, embodies the spirit of hope, improves communities, and makes America a better place to live. We care about the entire community, and we are dedicated to helping people help themselves and each other. So just be sure to raise your hands or pop things in the chat. I'm going to help Dr. Woods with some of that background logistical work. And with no further ado, I will hand you over to Dr. Woods. Thank you, Dr. Woods.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And the funny thing is, I thought I had that slide, so I had something written. But definitely, community action helps millions of people every year. So I'm definitely glad to be a part of such a great organization and network of people. And I hope community action is here for a long time, long time. But let me get you into a little bit about my organization, United Planning Organization, based here in Washington, D.C. We are the only CAP agency within DC as well. Fun fact, UPO actually predates CSBG as a whole. Always thought that was interesting. So we were fighting poverty before the government decided to gather around and gather people and make an initiative to fight poverty. So yeah, we were established December 10th. So our anniversary is coming up in 1962. Established by the Ford and Meyer Foundation. We also we are like I said before, we're the designated community action agency of Washington, D.C. And our mission is uniting people with opportunities. And annually, we operate with a budget of just about 42 million. Just a little bit more about UPO before I get into it. We serve about 50,000 plus customers every year. We have a staff of about 440, 450, somewhere around there every year. We have 22 locations and growing. We're getting more early learning sites. We have 8 CSBG funded service providers that do pay per performance, stuff like workforce development, youth services, things of that nature. We have 17 Head Start centers. As I said, we have a couple more coming. Some ribbon cuttings will be coming pretty soon. We also have 7 home visitors that go out into the community to service families. We have a robust number of volunteers. We have over 1,000 volunteers every single year. We have 600, over 600 community partners, and we have 2 certified Roma professionals. And we also have a cohort of about 10 coming. So this should be a double-digit number by the time I represent this, hopefully in another year. So with that being said, let's get into uh, let's get into why we're here. As the director of performance management, we have as a performance we essentially, the crown jewel of my department is this thing called the agency-wide scorecard. We went out for a platinum designation, agency of excellence, about 5 or 6 years ago. And as a part of trying to become an agency of excellence within the network, you have to make an agency-wide scorecard. My predecessor, Dr. Foriato, made a very robust one. That it has gotten us, like I said, it's gotten us the awards. He has presented this all across the country at different CAP agencies, and I have inherited it, being his I've inherited it, and and the one thing about it is when he hired me, as they already had the Agency of Excellence, he hired me to improve upon this the agency-wide scorecard that helped get us that designation. So I will talk to you a little bit about how I improved upon it by linking different data systems and different spreadsheets to automatically update our agency-wide scorecard in real time. So anybody could come and take a look at any point of the year and see where our performance is. Anybody, stakeholders, funders, you, me, your mother, your grandmother, anybody can come in and take a look. So let me get into a little bit of it. Also, we advertise the scorecard in our annual report, and we also package it in grant and funder applications so that grantors and funders can get a good sense of our overall performance before they invest their money into our organization. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, so the agency-wide our agency-wide scorecard is made up of 6 domains. Organizational standards, I'm pretty sure if you're in our network, you know exactly what organizational standards are. That's a percentage. The completion of our strategic plan is a percentage. Our overall aggregate of our overall programmatic outcomes and the completion of those outcomes are a percentage. Stakeholder input, including customers, funders, partners, that is quantified into a piece of the agency-wide scorecard. Program and admin monitoring. We have my monitors that I run in my department. We have an internal monitoring system, and I give us an overall monitoring score at the end. I'll explain more as the slides follow. We also have capacity building and governance. That I won't get too much into here because there's not a lot of automation for that. That is literally a checklist of just compliance meetings. Are we having board meetings? Are we having all the requisite committees for these board meetings? Are we turning in our annual evaluations on time for staff? Stuff like that. Just doing checklists, just making sure we're just doing just good internal cleaning. So I won't get too much into that one. But that, if you want to know more about that, please, I'll be happy to explain that later. And like I said, each domain has its different weights based on its importance to the overall mission of the organization. So now, as follow, I'm going to get a little bit deeper into 6 of these domains and how each one is quantified in a separate spreadsheet that then links to our agency-wide scorecard spreadsheet that's updated in real time. So the first one is going to be the satisfaction survey. I'm pretty sure if you have CSBG money, you have the Microsoft suites. So I have used a lot of the Microsoft suites, and if you have the online 365 version, it can do miraculous things. They can all talk to each other, and I'll show you, and I'll explain a little bit of it. But first, like I said earlier, we have as the Agency of Excellence, we have to do more than just the customer survey that's mandated from the org standards. We have to do a plethora of surveys, including a partner survey, a funder survey, a volunteer survey, an administrative staff survey, and a board survey, and as well as the customer survey. So after we administer all these surveys digitally, for some of our, well, it's for our customer survey, some of our customers who aren't as digitally literate, we also still make a physical copy available for them, and we have our monitors, or we'll have program staff within the program that took the survey to transfer it to our electronic database. If you ever use surveys within Microsoft, you know that you can download a Excel spreadsheet that gives you the results of it, right? So what we did is I made a separate spreadsheet that then reroutes all of the aggregate satisfaction scores from each survey. So I don't know how well you can see it, but on here, there's a tab for each of the surveys. So all the scores are routed to each one of these tabs, and then there's the main satisfaction survey tab that then tallies all the satisfaction from each one of these surveys. How do our board members feel about us? How do our customers feel about us? How do internal staff feel about our executive admin and business offices, and how well they respond? How do our partners feel about us? People that we partner with in the community. So we want to get an overall satisfaction. When my predecessor first started doing this, the score for this only relied on whether or not we completed the survey or not. It didn't speak to whether or not people were actually satisfied with our performance. So in the spirit of continuous improvement, I wanted our satisfaction survey score to actually mirror people's satisfaction of us. So last year, as you can see, we got an 84%. People are pretty good with us. Definitely want to get that up. But once this score is aggregated, this score is directly linked to our agency-wide scorecard spreadsheet. And that will, I believe, I know, satisfaction survey counts as about 5% of our 5% weighted within our agency-wide scorecard. So this is one spreadsheet, well, two spreadsheet links to the agency-wide scorecard, and you're going to see more of this theme as I keep going on. The next is our strategic plan. Next is our strategic plan. So each individual division and business office has created a 3-year strategic plan based on the overarching UPO goals. Each goal includes objectives, strategies, tactics to completing the overall goal. So what my department was tasked with is we created a spreadsheet that will quantifiably track the progress of each program and office goals that round up into an overall completion score. What we also do, I don't know if everybody does this for a strategic plan, but we also monitor our strategic plan as well. So what happens is I have 3 monitors within OPM, Office of Performance Management. They will once a month or every other month, they will send out an email to meet or have the division directors send them the evidence of what they've completed, because they have here each tactic, and for each tactic that they have, that's literally just a step that's the step towards completing their strategic plan goal. There's a description of evidence. What does the evidence that you completed this look like? Once they hand over the evidence, my monitors verify that this is actually evidence that they completed it, and then they'll check this box. Yes, evidence collected by monitor. There's a timestamp. And then once that timestamp hits, or once that timestamp automatically populates, then it signals to a macro that I made within it that this goal is complete. And the percentage of completion is pretty much how many overall tactics they have to how many overall tactics they completed, and that's the quantifiable score of how they completed their strategic plan. Right. So what you're seeing is the front-facing document of the actual tracking system of did they complete, like what it is, are they completing it, yes, no, when they completed, challenges, comments. Once they all these numbers roll up into a summary page. So yeah, so the summary page gives us a breakdown of how the progress is going for each strategic goal. As you can see overall, just overall goal one, goal two, where their percentage is at. But then it also gets a little bit deeper as well. It gets into what percentage of their goal is not started yet or has been delayed, which percentage of their goals are in progress, which percentage of your goals are completed without evidence, and how many are completed with evidence. Completed with evidence is what gets you the points. And then also I put down another breakdown as well for fiscal year, so that you can keep on track with how many goals is planned to be completed within which fiscal year, so that you can keep track of, hey, I'm 25% done with this, because one's going to roll into the other. 1 year is going to roll into the other, and then the next thing you know, it's going to snowball. So I want to make sure that they had this, to make sure that they can just keep track and keep up with it. But what ends up happening is this number, the number right here at the top, or the top number, is just the overall, how many tactics you completed versus how many tactics you have. This is then this number is routed directly to the agency-wide scorecard for each division. Excuse me, for each division in each business office. And then that number is then tallied up into an overall organization strategic plan completion number. That number is also worth 5% of our agency-wide scorecard. So yes, so this is another example of a spreadsheet. Then the overall performance number is then being routed to our agency-wide scorecard. So like I said, this is going to be a theme. So no surprise here, but I'm gonna keep going. Next is internal monitoring. This is something that is very near and dear to my heart as a director of performance management. And my three monitors, Liz, Ahmad, actually I only have two now. One of my monitors has moved on to the director of service providers. Very proud of her for that. And she's actually our other Roma certified staff member as well. So I had a really good quality on my team. So let's get into it. So every quarter for programs and semi-annually for business offices, the Office of Performance Management will do an internal audit of performance, compliance, and procedure within the office. The findings from these reports are then transferred to what's called an issue log. But I'll say this: the information from this report is not automatically transferred. They actually have to go in and write it in. We haven't figured out a way to automate this part yet, but we're still working on it. Don't worry. Next time you see me, we'll figure out a way to get whatever findings we find in our internal audits directly into this issue log. But let me show you what the issue log looks like. All right, so the issue log holds all the findings from the monitoring reports, as I said, and includes a tracking system for following up on non-compliance, innovations, and continuous improvements. Reading from left to right, as you can see when the report date was, what type of issue it was, the detail of the issue, evidence of the resolution. So once again, keeping up that theme, what does the evidence of performance look like? We don't just need to hear that you're doing stuff. We need to see that there's evidence of effort or impact. And then there is a button where it was the issue resolved and was the evidence collected by the monitor. Like I said, we want to keep collecting evidence and verifying that these things are happening, not just taking people's words for it. Once that button is clicked yes, there's a timestamp that goes down. And then as you can see in just about the middle where you can see a 3 and you can see 100% in a green box, that tracks the number of issues that a program or office has versus how many has been resolved. This number is automatically transferred to my monitor's tracking spreadsheet. So I have a spreadsheet that I track all of my monitors' deliverables for on an annual basis, and completing and following up on the issue log is one of those things. So this number is automatically transferred to their monitoring spreadsheet. Let me show you what this looks like. So this isn't the entire monitoring spreadsheet. This is actually the summary page. Each one of these domains has its own separate tracking page. So I'm just showing you the summary of what it looks like. Essentially, on an annual basis, they have a certain amount of monitoring reports. They have a certain amount of strategic plan, or each one of their actually, I'm sorry, let me backtrack real quick just to give you a little bit of background. Each monitor is assigned one or more programs or business offices. So one monitor could be over workforce development, the finance office, and the legal office. And then another one can be over youth services, community health, and foster grandparents. So each one is assigned. So based on how many programs you're assigned is how many monitoring reports you're going to be, I'm expect for you to do on an annual basis, quarterly, and for the businesses semi-annually. So that's how these numbers are generated, in case you were wondering. And then I meet with my monitors once a month, and we go over what they have completed. I keep track of their monitoring, like I said, monitoring reports. Have they checked up with their programs on their divisions? Have they completed? Each of our sites, we have comment boxes that we're responsible for relaying feedback. So have they checked the comment boxes? And then, of course, what's automatically generated in this is their issue log. Of all their programs, how many issues are their programs facing, and have they followed up and made these resolutions? I put that directly on my monitors as responsibility to keep following up and give any effort to help them resolve these issues. Because at the end of the day, that's what we're here to do is continuous improvement. And if you're not helping them push continuous improvement, it's going to show in your performance. So this is something I use to keep my monitors accountable. But at the end of it all, they have a overall monitoring performance. I know you're looking at this 22%. It looks low. I took a screenshot. This is the very beginning. This is the first quarter. So actually, this monitor is close to 25%. Would be right about on track. They're close to on track. So this is actually good for right now. So just in case anybody was wondering. But yes, the aggregate score for all three of my monitors end up making up our monitoring score, where my predecessor, our score for monitoring just would be how many reports we completed, not what's happening in the reports. Are we resolving issues? Are we following up? Is continuous improvement happening? So I changed the score around to actually mirror the actual effort of monitoring and the effort of continuous improvement as well. So this was a way that I was able to also improve upon our AGCY scorecard as well. Moving on next, I think I'm doing okay on time. Something that's very important, financial strength. Financial strength. So the financial strength domain is made up of a couple different spreadsheets, or a couple different factors. One being how many, like I said, if you know the org standards, you know that there's a portion of org standards that's just dedicated to finance. So one's made up of our org standards, of the compliance of financial org standards. One's made up of expenditures. Are we spending the money that people are giving us? And then we also have goals on grant acquisition. Are we meeting our grant acquisition goals? And all three of those go to make up. Excuse me, I'm sorry, I just ate before I got on here, so I really apologize. But let me continue. But yeah, all three of those go on to make up our financial strength. So let's keep going. So yeah, org standards is is just an overall domain later on. So I'll explain the org standards chart a little bit later. I know it's big. I'm sorry if you can't see it very, very, very clearly. I try to get the clearest one I can. But for this example, I filtered out just the financial management org standards. So for this part, we have a separate spread. I route the completion of just the financial org standards to a separate spreadsheet that counts for our financial domain. So depending on which ones are completed, that counts as a third of our financial domain in the agency-wide scorecard. Next is the expenditures. We have this thing called the performance measurement report. Like I said, I'll explain that more when I get down to programmatic. So when I get down to the programmatic outcomes completion. But within the programmatic performance measurement report, we also take into account expenditures, because you don't want to evaluate somebody on performance and not know how much money or how much capital they're able to work with, or how much capital they're expending to actually complete these outcomes. So that's something that my predecessor added in, that honestly helped in our path to getting the pathways to getting the agency of excellence as well. So kudos to him for putting this in here. But we essentially, what we do here is, for each spreadsheet, and mind you, there's about 20, we have 20 programs and offices. I route the expenditures, or the percent, I route the expenditures from each program and each sheet to the agency-wide scorecard. And on the agency-wide scorecard Excel sheet, I calculate the total amount of dollars spent versus dollars we have. And then expenditures become, overall program expenditures become a third of the financial agency-wide scorecard. And I'm gonna zoom in on it just so you see what it looks like. And the third one, I don't have a screenshot of this spreadsheet, but our director of research and development, who handles our grants, he has a very, very, very fancy spreadsheet called the DSM, that essentially tracks each grant year to year, how many we applied for versus how many we got. And it's an amazing tool. And I haven't yet got a chance to figure out how to route his grant number directly to the agency-wide scorecard. We're still working on that one, but he's gracious enough to just send us the number, and when we do a hard input on that one. So sorry to disappoint anybody that sees us just putting in numbers directly. That's something that we're trying to get we're trying to get as far away from as possible. But meeting our grant goals is also a third of our financial agency-wide scorecard domain. And like I said, just another improvement from what it was in the beginning. From what it was in the beginning, I believe it was more compliance based. It had more to do with, are we meeting in our financial committees? Did we complete our taxes? Stuff like that. Don't get me wrong, all that stuff is very much important, but there definitely are other aspects to finance in our performance of using it and spending it, that we could add in. So that's why I was very adamant in adding in, how well are we spending our money. As nonprofits, you already know, the funders are going to take what you don't spend. They'll find another way to use that money. They're not dying to give it to you. So that's a big side of the performance, is how well can we spend the money? Are we meeting our grant goals? And then obviously org standards. There are things that CSBG itself is just looking for us to do from a financial standpoint. Are we completing those at their very basis? All three of those things should make, and mind you, there's still more financial performance indicators that we could use, but from a basic standpoint, coming from where we started, definitely a great improvement. Yeah, that makes up that's another, I believe that's 5%. That's another 5%. So honestly, I should have said this from the beginning. Every domain is 5% except for programmatic outcomes. Programmatic outcomes is about 70%. Just in case anybody was wondering. Sorry if I didn't make that clear at the beginning. But let's keep moving. Still making good time. Everybody's favorite thing, org standards. So since I'm making good time, I can get a little bit into this chart. And if you want my, I know there's people out there that's paying money for somebody really brilliant has made a system for organizational standards where they do a lot. They track it, they tell you when it's due, they email people automatically. But you're gonna have to pay a boatload of money for it. I have made a similar spreadsheet that does most of the stuff they do. The only thing it doesn't do is email people automatically for you. That's and as a person in the agency, legally I can't sell it. I can't sell the spreadsheet, so it's free to anybody that's interested in it once I explain it. So let me get to it. Okay, so like I said, just tracking the org standards, just basic stuff. The org standard number, the description of the standard, what category it falls in, shelf life. That means how long it's good for, whether it's 5 years, 1 year, 2 years, or update is needed. Then we start to get into some of the particulars. Description of evidence. What evidence does your organization have that substantiates this standard, right? Then you start to kind of get deeper into it. What office does, once you establish what the document or what the evidence looks like, what office does the evidence lie in? Is it finance? Is it HR? Is it legal? Is it performance management? So you want to drill down where this is and who the point of contact is for this. So when it's time to renew it, you know exactly who to go to. Then the status. Yes, no, pending. No, we have made no attempts to get it. Pending, we have emailed the person who's responsible for it, and they are aware that we need it and it should be on its way. Yes, we have it. We have it in hand. Once it clicks over to yes, the date completed updates automatically, and then we have the expiration date. The expiration date is a macro that's based on the shelf life. So when we say we completed it, it'll do a calculation of how many days until it will be expired. And then you can't see it. I hit a column in here, but there's a today function. And essentially the standing where it says not good, that standing column, when the day of the expiration exceeds today, that will switch to not good. So once it expires, it'll update automatically without you having to do anything. All you have to do is just keep logging back in to see what's expired. You can log in once a month, you can log in every quarter, but every time you log in, it'll tell you exactly where you are. Right. And then I want to draw your attention to the number at the top left. That number 33%. That is the overall percentage of org standards completed. That's overall org standards versus what you have completed, and it does a calculation of the standing, what's not good versus good. So it'll do that number, and that's what that number is. And I'm sure you can guess the next part. The number at the very top left is then transferred directly to our organizational agency-wide scorecard as to represent our org standard domain. I'll say the only innovation with this one is that I created the system and then I had it automatically go to the agency-wide scorecard. Before, it was like a long checklist on the agency-wide scorecard itself that you had to go and manually check yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no for all 60, 50 plus of them. Very tedious task. I'd rather just do it itself. And we made it happen. So there's that. And then last but not least, okay, I'm making good time. I can spend a little time with this. Last but not least, performance, program performance. This is where there's actually like a web, like there is a web of spreadsheets that go into this. So let's get into it. Let's start. 23. Okay. Okay, before we even get into program performances, we do an interview with each program each year to figure out exactly, essentially it's just a bio interview, to figure out what they're capable, what each program is capable of, what need they're servicing, staff they have, funders, customer path, services outcomes, expected outcomes, things like that nature. So I'll so yes. So the first part of our logic model, and mind you, this comes from Roma. Roma has a logic model that disclaimer, I like the Roma logic model, but I felt it was lacking in a lot of areas that should be that should be addressed by, especially by a community action agency, that you should address first before some of the indicators that they presented. But I still kept a lot of the indicators, so I'll get into some of the updates. The first section, top right, is CNA. That's a community needs assessment. Every agency has a community needs assessment. You need it because poverty in New York does not look the same as poverty in Montana. That does not look the same as poverty in Idaho. You need to figure out what your community actually needs from you and where these needs rank amongst each other. So what we did first is, so in my logic model, what we did first is we handled the community needs. The example that we have here is youth services, where in our community needs assessment, the need for additional support for at-risk students ranks 12th citywide amongst all of the needs that our city actually needs, and it's in the education domain. So off the back, our logic model is establishing exactly where the program is servicing the need of the city and how bad that need is. Next, we get into a little bit of the, to the right, we get into a little bit of the program particulars itself. The division division itself is youth services. The program is create, and then who is their monitor? Who's the one from OPM? Who's the one that's monitoring them? We get into their funding source, the name of the funding source, how much are they receiving from that funding source, and what the lifespan of that funding source is. This is very important because a lot of your services and outcomes are going to come directly from this funding source because you're not doing this work for free. So if you know the funding source immediately, then you'll know what the services and outcomes that you'll be looking for at the end it will be. Next is also staff. You want to know what staff you have, what funding you're working with, and you want to know how much staff you have to actually complete some of these services and goals and to work with some of the money that you have. So you also want to get to know the staff of the program before you just go into figuring out what they do and what they're supposed to, and what your expectations of them are. You got to know what staff members they have to give. Bottom left is the services and outcomes. Sorry, and mind you, once again, sorry if this is small. If you want a sample of this later, like I said, all this stuff will be available for you. I can hand it, or you can email me. We can do this one-on-one. I'll show you. But we go, the part where I believe I improved upon the Roma logic model is not only just getting into what the services and outcomes are, but another common theme. What a description of the service. What is the service? What does can you say it out loud? What is the description? What does it look like? What does it look like in practice? What the evidence of it looks like. What would evidence that this service was completed? What's the evidence that this outcome was completed? What your projections are. And mind you, the projections is what's going to actually end up being routed later. Just keep that in mind. But then also, where does the information live? What database does these services and outcomes live? So when my monitors go to monitor these programs, they know exactly what need they're addressing. They know the funding source. They know how many staff they have. They know the services that they're doing. They know the description of the services. They know what the evidence of the services look like. They know how many they were expecting to complete, and they know where the evidence lives. So it makes it so it literally sets up a monitoring exercise just from completing this logic model. And last but not least is the customer path. From start to finish, what does it look like from recruiting to when the customers walk in the first day to when the customers leave with the outcome completed? Every step that they take, so that when my monitors come to audit the process, we have a visual map of what the process of a customer looks like, so we can also audit the customer quality side of it as well. But like I said, the part that gets routed to our performance measurement report is the expected. What do you expect? What number are you expecting to complete? So this number then automatically goes to the program's performance measurement report, which also holds personnel. So personnel are also transferred to here. And then down at the bottom left, you see here, you see the indicators. We also have some other things. Like I said, we have finances that you saw earlier, and then we have these macro metrics. This is where we get into the actual program performance itself. So I'll go to the next one. In the macro metrics, we have this thing called the year-to-date weighted average. The year-to-date weighted average is the overall aggregate total percentage of outcomes and services completed versus how many outcomes and services we said we were going to do. As you can see down here, in the bottom left, we have the plan, we have the year-to-date plan, we have the year-to-date actual, and then we have the year-to-date actual percentage. And essentially what all that means is that, yeah, that's just how much we completed. Also, another side note, within our performance measurement plan is also based on a 12-month calendar. So it doesn't just tell you where you're supposed to be quarterly. You can go to each month and it will update how what the projection for that month was supposed to be. So you can keep up with this on a monthly basis. That's great for when executives are monitoring or supervising their directors on performance. They can go directly into our performance measurement report and figure out what the performance and where the program should be on each indicator that it has, to help with continuous improvement as well. But like I said, all of the performance outcomes and services and the completion of them are tallied up into an overall performance score. This overall performance score is then routed directly to the agency-wide scorecard, and then the overall performance of UPO is then aggregated, and then that number, our program performance, is 70% of our entire agency-wide scorecard, because obviously we could do great on org standards, we could do great on surveys, we could do great on a number of these domains. But if we are not completing outcomes and we are not completing services, CSBG is going to take this money. We will no longer be in this agency. So this is literally the most important thing in our agency-wide scorecard, to make sure that we are connecting our customers with services and outcomes, and that we actually have tangible evidence that we completed them, for just our verification and just for quality assurance and control. So yes, that is, I believe I am at the end. So yeah, like I said, just to recap, now bringing this back full center, like I said, I should explain this in the beginning, but these are all of our domains: org standards, strategic plan, financial strength, programmatic outcomes, customer staff input, monitoring, and capacity building. And you can see the weights of each one of these domains on the side. And like I said, this is a spreadsheet that lives all of these spreadsheets and all these Excel files all live in SharePoint. And if they're all in SharePoint, you can link each one to each one and have numbers directly linked to it, so that you don't have to do a lot of number transferring, data transferring. You can have documents that kind of live and breathe and talk to each other, to a point where sometimes there'll be executive meetings and the agency-wide scorecard will be brought up without even my knowledge, because the executives know that it's a living document. You literally, anybody can look at it at any point in time and know that that is our year-to-date progress on each one of those domains. And they're all coming from live spreadsheets that live within a web of spreadsheets within our network. And that is, if that's not continuous improvement, I don't know what is. And I'm very proud of my team for helping me put some of these spreadsheets together. The macros, the data engineering on the backside was a lot for some of these things. But we made it happen, not for the accolades or not for the, just because we're a bunch of nerds that like to play with spreadsheets. We actually have lessened the amount of hours that we work having these spreadsheets talk to each other, rather than us picking up numbers and then dragging them to another spreadsheet, or picking up this number and dragging it to another spreadsheet. Like, if you think about all the numbers I said that transfer automatically, think about having to go and transfer each one by yourself, like literally click by click. Think about how many hours that might take, especially with 20 programs, 20 offices, 4 monitors. You do the math. It will literally be hours of work. So doing this, having your spreadsheets talk to each other, will save a lot of time, a lot of efficiency, which leaves us a lot of time on the back end to actually use the information. Because that's the thing, a lot of people gather information and they have all these fancy spreadsheets, but they're not using it in a strategic or dynamic way. We wanted to make our jobs more efficient and dynamic, gathered evidence in a really strategic way so that we could use it to make to take advantage of insights, to find flaws and fix them. Not just say that we have a bunch of fancy spreadsheets. So please remember that if you want, if you, and I believe that, like I said, at this point I'm rambling. But yes, are there any questions? If you want me to give you any of these spreadsheets, or if you want a one-on-one tutorial of them, I am available by schedule. Schedule me in. I'll meet, send whatever you want. I'm very open to getting some of the best practices I believe that the network has. I want to get this to more people because I understand everybody doesn't have a performance management office. Everybody doesn't have Dr. Woods. Not trying to toot my own horn, but everybody doesn't have somebody that's going to think this deeply into data and think this deeply into performance management and measurement systems. So for the people that don't, or either can't afford it or don't have the capacity within their areas to hire somebody like this, I'm offering these spreadsheets pro bono. I will train and not only just offer the spreadsheets, I will help train and implement so that you can use it correctly as well. So at that point, I will stop talking. I'll take questions.
So thank you, Dr. Woods. You may have uh, bitten off quite a bit there because I have a feeling there are going to be a lot of people who are going to say, tell me, tell me, tell me more. And I'm seeing it in the chat. Here's the first question that we received earlier. Is how visible to the general staff is the scorecard with the macros, or is this strictly just for calculating?
The macros are obviously are embedded within, and a lot of these scorecards we keep the editing rights within OPM. So a lot of times the macros hide in plain sight. They're there, but you don't know that they're there. But even if you wanted to try to explore, you can't, because that was another innovation that we've done. Because a lot of times when we're having these spreadsheets and there's a lot of people in them and a lot of people putting information here and there, macros get broken, links get broken. I've had nightmares happen, before presentations. So we've limited the amount of access people have to edit, but we keep it available for anybody to see as far as transparency goes. But we're not going to give you a chance to mess it up, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah. That's what one of my fears that was going through my mind. I was like, oh my gosh, how, especially with your offer to share, I was like, how many macros will get broken, right? But I'm sure you know what you're talking about. So another question is, what was the process to get the automation set up?
YouTube. I'll tell you the truth. I'll quick disclaimer. I'm not actually an Excel wizard myself. Like, there's not just a bunch of information I have in my head about Excel formulations and spreadsheets and macros. But what I do have is I have a knack for problem solving. Where I'm like, okay, if this spreadsheet has an automatic date feature that then, punches a number that then calculates the completion of this, then that'll save me a lot of time. So what I'm thinking about is, to get the macros going, honestly, you need to think about what you're using them for rather than just trying to use a macro itself. So once you know what you're going to use it for, then there's a million people. When I tell you there's a million people on YouTube that will teach you how to do it, there is a million. They're all waiting. They want your subscriptions. They want your likes. They want your comments. They want all. So they're throwing it out there. It's nothing but people. I'm telling you, there's none of these macros or automations that I just knew off the top of my head that, oh, I know how to do. No, I went and learned, but I knew what I wanted first. You have to know what you wanted first. You have to know that it's going to be efficient and that it's going to actually lead to the goal that you want. And then after that, going and learning it is not the hard part. Knowing how to use it effectively is the part that you should start with.
So I'm seeing a lot of resources being shared, which I love, in the chat. Stack Overflow, Power Apps 911.
Yeah.
Google and YouTube are your friends.
Absolutely.
Let's see. There was another question. Well, I think one of my questions to you is, what is the easiest way for you to share um, these resources with everyone? We post the recording and the slides to the NCAP website.
Hmm.
I don't know if you want those spreadsheets shared in that much of a public way without the context, perhaps of you providing that one-on-one. I don't know if you'd prefer to do this by email. If you would go to your next slide though, because there were a couple of folks asking for your contact info. There you go. So
Yeah.
what would work best to get this info out to folks?
I'd rather work with the people that actually want to work with it. So if it's something that you want, please email me. And mind you, with just disclaimer, with every email, I do have to um, okay it with my executive management, because technically, even though I made some of these systems, and I don't actually own them, and I don't own the rights to just obviously I'm offering to give them out. I've had prior consent to give them out, but I still have to go through the process of command. But if you want them, um, I'll be glad to send them to you. Sometimes people just say, hey, just send it to me and we'll figure it out. Some people actually want a one-on-one sit down, and then some people even want me to meet up with them a couple times. Hey, teach us how to implement it, and then come back and make sure that we're implementing it correctly. So there's a lot of different levels. Like I said, I have a lot of time. Well, I'm not gonna say a lot of time, but I have time because these spreadsheets have cut down a lot of my work time. That which is why I'm even offering myself to meet and have a little bit more larger in-depth conversations about how to use these spreadsheets, or even if there's other systems that we can make for you that aren't these spreadsheets, but you just say, hey, I have a problem and I need some sort of spreadsheet that helps tracks to this that will help our efficiency. Dr. Woods will help you brainstorm. I don't know why I'm talking in third person, but I will help you
Why
brainstorm.
not?
Yeah, I will help you brainstorm whatever system, because like I said, all these spreadsheets are just things that I brainstorm at one point and then we create. So you don't have to actually use exactly what I'm using. We can use what you actually need. And that's the point, is getting something that's actually useful to you, not just using something I made to make myself feel better. I feel better that you're using your data efficient. So please
So
email me.
I greatly appreciate, on behalf of the folks that you're going to wind up working with. I greatly appreciate you making the offer to help folks, because, like you say, I think sometimes the intention is there, but implementation can really be hard, right? So I
Mhm.
appreciate you offering to share not only the tools, but your time to help people with actual implementation. So it says, how can we contact Dr. Woods to talk more about this? Thank you. Dr. Woods' contact information. So it is on the screen right now. Let me type your email address, if you don't mind, into the chat. It's easier, I think, for folks to grab it from there. UPO. Of course, I can't type if anybody's watching me type. So there we go. All right. And so if you would, Dr. Woods, go to that next slide. Let me get folks to take a
One,
screenshot of
can I give one example
Oh,
of
absolutely.
somebody I worked with?
Sure.
So shout out to Alaska, the cap in Alaska. I worked with them, and this is an example of just what it would be like to work with me, right? Um, they had a consultant. Anybody raise their hand if they ever had a consultant that didn't really do exactly a great quality job of what they were actually supposed to do. So they had a consultant that did their strategic plan, that was doing their strategic plan tracking tool. I believe they were paying. I'm sorry if I'm putting too much of their information out there, but
And
they were paying they're paying their strategic plan person 90K a year, and to keep up with this for this tracking system tracking system. But it just wasn't up to par. It was shabby. It wasn't passing CSBG standards, things like that. So obviously they took them out, but they didn't have a data engineer. So once they got rid of them, they had no semblance of a strategic plan system. So I linked up with one of the executive assistants at the time. She's moved up at this point. At the national conference in Atlanta, and we talked. We exchanged informations. I ended up the strategic plan tracking system that I showed you in this presentation. I ended up giving to her, and they for their plan, for their cap, they didn't need all of the most of the intricate stuff that we had in there, so we shaped it down to what they needed to be effective. And literally we essentially just me and her, we remade a system that previously cost them $90,000 a year, but was of better quality. So that is just an example of what it's like to work with. I'm gonna work with you to make sure that it works for you, not just take my product and use it and stroke my ego. Like let's really help each other.
Yeah, and that's exactly why we turn to you as one of the peer experts. Um, so I just want to ask
Oh,
you guys to take a couple of minutes and complete a very brief evaluation for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's that we utilize the data that we gather from these evaluations to think about what we're going to do in the future. These peer data webinars, of which today was one, came about as a result of some requests from data-oriented staff across the network. So we hope to, again, be responsive to those needs. So let us know. Let us know what you need. I have put Dr. Wood's email address in the chat, and it's also in the PowerPoint. So when you get that in your email the next day or two, you'll have that available. And so with that, I'll ask if there are any last minute questions, or Dr. Wood, if you wanted to uh, have any last words. There are folks who are swearing y'all are going to be very close very soon because you're going to be
oh
working
yeah,
with
yeah, 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 yeah. Come, yeah, talk to me,
made
talk
a
to me.
lot of friends.
Talk to me. I'm a nice guy. I'm good to work with, fun to work with. And I look forward to I just got an email just now. Shout out Andy, shout out Ashley too, Ashley Neal. Ashley,
There you go.
so they're coming out. So yeah, definitely I'll be in. Forgive me if I don't get back to you right away. I didn't eat lunch today. So right after this, I'm going to get something to eat. But I'll definitely try to get back to everybody by at least the end of, if not the end of the day. I'll get back to you by tomorrow for sure.
All right. Well, guys, we appreciate it. I see a lot of kudos in the chat, Dr. Woods. We appreciate you lending your time and your talent, and especially again being willing to help people actually make some of these changes that are going to be make a great impact on their agencies. So we thank you guys. Please take a couple of minutes and fill out the evaluations. And thanks again. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you soon.
Thank you so much. Look forward to working with everybody.